Happy day, Christ Greenfield. Welcome to CG Live. My name is Ryan Barlow. I'm one of the student pastors here at your church. Honored to be joined by Maddy, Haase.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, one of our DCEs. Today, we're going to be diving into seasons.
I thought it was appropriate. I got us pumpkin drinks from Starbucks. So the pumpkin cream cold foam, and then a typical pumpkin spice latte, or PSL, Ryan, if you were curious.
Yeah.
How long has it been since you've had a PSL?
I'm going to say about 8 years.
Was that when you worked at Starbucks?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
We'll
what do you think?
Well, it's like drinking. It's like drinking a pumpkin pie that someone poured a pot of coffee on top of.
I mean, you can't go wrong there.
No, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Well, I was thinking, here in Phoenix, we don't have a ton of seasons, right? We have summer, and then we have winter, which is really fall if you move to any part of the rest of the country.
Right.
And I was just reflecting on how often when the weather changes, or we drink pumpkin spice anything, or October hits, which, congrats, it's October, which is so exciting.
Yes, it is.
That you get to invoke this feeling of like change, or something, a season is closing, summer's finally coming to an end here in Phoenix, and we are looking forward to the next season. And I was kind of bringing this up to Ryan, and we were talking about, why don't we talk about like seasons in life, seasons in ministry, just seasons in general, because it is such a fun part of this life that we get to journey on, that we do have seasons, that there's seasons of life, but there's also nature seasons and seasons that are in the Bible. So
yeah, and so just to kind of, my thoughts too is like, we don't really get like the leaves changing, and there's not like a rapid change of temperature or that sort of thing. So it is, living in Phoenix, you do have to kind of have things that kind of remind you that the seasons are in fact changing. And in my house, we get excited because we're going to decorate for fall time.
Fun.
Put scarecrows up and little fake pumpkins everywhere, and it just adds to that you're just recognizing that it's just a different season now.
Totally.
And so you look forward to it. There's a lot of fun stuff, but it's also, like Maddy was saying, sometimes it's we're saying, okay, it's a new season. What about the past season was good? And what about the past season do I need to give to Jesus as I enter into something new?
Totally.
In my own personal season. So, personally, working in ministry can be very busy. You can have a lot of busy seasons. Sometimes it's a jog, and sometimes it's a sprint. Right. And there's always lots to do. So that season of busyness for me, as I look towards fall, I'm just kind of evaluating my own calendar and intentions and goals, and saying, how can I be better effective or more effective at maybe a handful of things rather than trying to juggle 100 things and not really doing any of them very well. Right. So. And
I almost think I love to travel, for those of you who don't know, and I'm on a plane a lot because seeing friends or family. And right now I'm in a really fun season where all of my friends are getting married, so I have a lot of weddings I've been going to. And on those planes, I've been like looking down over just either the Phoenix Valley or wherever I'm going, and seeing like this time of change. And I agree with you. Like, how do we're on fall break for many of you. For those of you who have kids, so it's like a week of like breath, but how do you continually reflect and be vulnerable with the seasons that you're coming from? Do you take time to reflect on the past season, on the summer, on what's coming up next? And I think that's something that sometimes we're so busy that we forget to reflect, and we just go on to the next thing. Like, fall is here, time to decorate, right? Thanksgiving's here, time to decorate. Christmas is here, because this is the season when it's fun to decorate and get excited about these next seasons, but do we take time to reflect on the past ones? And I think... Yeah, and even as we reflect, how might we also be looking at the seasons ahead and thinking about how are we going to exist within these seasons in the way that God wants us to? Totally. Because there's a lot going on, and it's all good stuff. But how is God leading us, either in our vocations as husbands, fathers, wives, mothers, wherever it is we work, where our jobs are, within our own homes? What do the seasons look like for our kids? And just, what does that look like for us as followers of Jesus? So is there rest in that season? Yeah.
Do we have seasons that we can look at where we have things like fall break where we say, we have this season of rest, and then we know it's going to get busy again, and let's work hard knowing that at the end of this season we'll have more time to rest and to celebrate and do the fun stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't remember when, but a little while ago we had all talked about John Mark Comer's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and that just, even when you said that, comes to mind. If y'all haven't read that book, it is my go-to every year. I don't have very many books I read every year, but this is one of the books that I'll read every year just to remind me what Sabbath rest looks like, what rest looks like in the Lord, because even when we're busy, like working in ministry with our families, whatever it might be, even when we're busy, we need to take time to carve out Sabbath rest.
Right. So I'm thinking about just this next season in my life, and I think and maybe not thinking about like what do I want to exclude, but what do I want to include, and then how do I plan around that, and also just hold those plans loosely so that I'm not just like, hey, I'm going to stick to this thing and be rigid, because things change, right? But so I think about what do I want to include. I definitely need to include more family time, and so how do I look at this next season and say, what am I doing intentionally with my schedule, with my family schedule, to where at least weekly, if not daily, is there time set aside in a busy season to where I'm paying attention to and serving the needs of my family so they have my presence.
Yeah.
And not just always like working towards a goal, right?
Totally.
So
that's awesome.
So what was that book? The Ruthless
Elimination of Hurry.
Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I think
by John Mark Comer. He's a pastor in Portland. So.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a great resource. Ryan, what does the Bible say about seasons and different ways that we or Jesus has experienced seasons?
Yeah. Well, first we can go to the Old Testament. In the book of Daniel in chapter 2, we read, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding." So it's this picture of who's in control of these seasons and what happens within them.
Right.
Blessed be the name of God forever. So just kind of that hope that even when things might seem like a whirlwind, God is the one that's setting up these times and seasons in our lives.
That's awesome.
Another one I think we're very familiar with is Ecclesiastes 3, a time for everything. And further in this passage, starting, I'll just read it for you. "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." And as I read these and kind of hear them as I'm reading them, I see there's this kind of like tension between all these things that we do in life. For example, time to plant, but time to pluck up what is planted. I think that's fun for the harvest fall season we're in.
100%. Yeah.
But there's also times when we weep and times when we laugh. And I think it's showing us like these two things are separate. And sometimes, you can't do both at once.
But you still need to take time.
Time is the word. Yeah. A time to seek, a time to look for something, right? Or there's a time to lose. What can I let go of? What should be lost?
Right.
A time to tear. So it's time to take things apart, and the time to sow, to build new things, to keep silent. I should probably learn that one a little better. And a time to speak. So just giving us that kind of picture of, just these different seasons that God has in our lives. But we need to take time to recognize them and live within them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think of like how God has set apart different seasons for all of this.
Yeah. And so I think that gives us freedom to not have to try to push back against that.
Yeah.
And to actually live into it. So if God is saying, hey, this is a time for you to tear or a time to sow, pray about that, talk with your wise counsel in your life. But once you feel like you have a sense of where God is leading you, lean into it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, oh, it's not what XYZ wants for me, or, don't be torn apart, just lean into the one thing. And then how did Jesus deal with this, right? Because he had seasons in his life, his ministry. Pastor Michael being here a couple weeks ago, he brought up this idea that Jesus would do some big stuff in his ministry, and then he would take time to get away from the crowds, even away from his disciples.
Yeah.
He would seek solitude to pray and to be with his Father, and then he would get back into doing great things in his ministry. So that, to me, if we're looking for the best example, that would be Jesus. And how does Jesus, work within his ministry of, there's this rhythm of, a sprint or a jog, doing lots of great stuff, but then taking time to recharge.
Right.
And then getting back to it, and then taking time to recharge.
There's a balance that we see in Jesus' life that we can then emulate in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
That's awesome.
And as someone who works in ministry, or as a follower of Jesus in general, that picture of this rhythm of work and rest, also the establishment of the Sabbath for men in Genesis, it gives us permission to rest.
100%.
If God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, took a day off, so can you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, we are just praying for you in this season, whatever this season looks like for y'all. And we just hope that you are reminded to rest in God's goodness, to rest in his grace and peace.
Yeah.
And also to be reminded that seasons do come and go, and that it's great the season that you're in because God is with you in the midst of it. Amen. So happy October. We are so glad the weather's finally cooling down. It's starting to feel like fall. Get your pumpkin.